All right, so let's dive into something interesting today.
Okay.
The world of legal damages,
Okay.
specifically in California,
All right.
and how they work in defamation cases,
Sounds good.
where proving harm can be
Yeah.
really tricky.
Yeah.
You might feel hurt,
Yeah.
right? But how do you actually prove it in court?
Exactly.
So that's what we're tackling today.
That's a great point, and that's where understanding the different types of damages is so important.
Okay.
This deep dive is based on a legal document called General versus Special versus Punitive Damages in California, which lays out, the framework for how we even think about harm in a legal context.
All right, so let's start with the one that we hear about all the time.
Sure.
Pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Where does that fit into this whole damages thing?
So that falls under the category of general damages.
Okay.
And these cover the kind of harm you can't easily put a dollar amount on.
Okay.
Emotional distress, damage to your reputation, that sort of thing. You don't need to show receipts or financial statements to prove these damages.
So it's more about the impact on your well-being.
Exactly.
Even if it doesn't directly hit your wallet.
Think of it this way. If a doctor is falsely accused of malpractice, even if their income remains steady, right, their reputation is tarnished, that has real-world consequences, even if they can't point to a specific financial loss.
That makes sense. But what about when the harm is financial?
Okay.
Like someone's actions cost you actual money.
That's where special damages come in.
Okay.
This category is all about those cold, hard numbers.
Okay.
Lost wages, missed business opportunities, medical expenses, documentation is key.
Okay.
Contracts, invoices, bank statements, anything that proves a direct link between the defendant's actions and your financial loss.
So for special damages, good record keeping is your best friend.
Absolutely.
But let's say someone did something truly awful, like intentionally trying to ruin you. Is there a way to make them pay for that?
Yeah.
Beyond just covering your losses?
That's where punitive damages come in.
Okay.
This category isn't about making you whole. It's about punishing the defendant for particularly egregious behavior. Think malice.
Okay.
Fraud. A deliberate intent to cause harm.
Those must be pretty hard to get right.
They are, and that's by design.
Yeah.
Punitive damages are meant for truly exceptional cases, and they require a much higher standard of proof.
Okay.
In a defamation case, you'd have to prove that the defendant knew they were spreading lies.
Right.
Or that they acted with reckless disregard for the truth. Think of the media outlet that publishes a damaging story about a celebrity, even though they have evidence it's false.
So punitive damages are like the legal equivalent of dropping the hammer.
Exactly.
You're not just seeking compensation.
Right.
You're going after them for intentionally causing harm.
Exactly. And because they're so serious, courts are very careful about awarding them, especially in cases involving free speech.
Right.
You need clear and convincing evidence that the defendant acted with malicious intent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a high bar to clear.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so we've got these three main types of damages, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
Does it matter how someone defames you?
That's a great question.
Like, is there a difference between spreading lies in writing versus saying something nasty out loud?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it gets to the heart of the distinction between libel and slander.
Okay.
Libel is written defamation. Think newspaper articles, blog posts, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Slander, on the other hand, is spoken defamation. It's all about those harmful words uttered in the heat of the moment or whispered behind someone's back.
So same basic idea.
Right.
Damaging someone's reputation with false statements.
Exactly.
But the method of delivery matters.
It does, especially when it comes to damages. In California, libel is generally considered more serious because it has a longer shelf life.
Right.
That newspaper article or online review can stay out there forever.
Forever.
So with libel, general damages are often presumed.
Okay.
You don't need to prove you suffered a specific financial loss to be awarded compensation for the harm to your reputation.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
Written defamation can really stick with you.
It can.
But what about slander?
Sure.
Does that mean it's harder to win a slander case?
It can be.
Okay.
In California, you typically need to prove special damages to win a slander case.
Okay.
That means showing those concrete financial losses we talked about earlier.
Right.
Lost wages, business deals gone sour, that sort of thing.
Okay.
The thinking is that spoken words, while harmful, are often more fleeting and less damaging in the long run.
So if someone badmouths me to my client,
right,
and I lose business because of it, I can go after them for those specific losses.
Exactly.
But what if there's no clear financial impact? Like someone spreads a nasty rumor about me at a party.
Right.
But it doesn't directly affect my job or income.
Yeah, that's where things get a bit tricky.
Okay.
But even with slander, there are some exceptions to that special damages rule.
Okay.
Certain types of spoken defamation are considered so inherently damaging that they're treated more like libel. We call this slander per se.
Per se.
Yes.
Sounds serious.
It is.
What kind of statements fall into that category?
These are statements that are so obviously harmful and damaging that the law recognizes the harm right off the bat. No need to prove specific financial losses.
Got it.
Think of accusations of serious crimes like theft or assault.
Okay.
Falsely accusing someone of having a loathsome disease, like a sexually transmitted infection, also falls under this category.
I see. So even if it's spoken, the potential for harm is so great that it's treated like written defamation.
Exactly. And there are a couple more categories of slander per se that are worth mentioning. Statements that falsely attack someone's professional competence.
Okay.
Like saying a doctor is incompetent or a lawyer is unethical. Can also qualify. These types of accusations can directly impact someone's livelihood, even if it's hard to trace the financial impact precisely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So even in the world of spoken defamation, there are some statements that are just so damaging that the law steps in and says, nope, we're not going to make the victim jump through hoops to prove they were harmed.
Right. It's about recognizing that certain types of statements, whether spoken or written, can inflict serious harm on a person's reputation and well-being. And the law needs to provide a way to address that.
Okay. This is all starting to click. But let's say someone defames me. And it's not clear-cut libel or slander per se. I can't prove I lost any money, but I still feel like my reputation has been tarnished. Is there anything I can do?
That's where the concept of nominal damages comes in. These are small, symbolic awards.
Often just $1 or $2 that acknowledge a legal wrong has occurred, even if there's no significant financial harm.
So it's less about the money and more about making a statement.
Exactly. Sometimes it's about principle. The plaintiff wants their name cleared in a court of law, even if they're not going to get a big payout. It's about saying you were wrong and the court agrees.
Interesting. So even if you can't prove major damages, you can still hold the person accountable in a legal sense.
Exactly.
But I imagine there are some downsides to pursuing a defamation case. If you're not seeking substantial financial compensation.
There are defamation lawsuits can be costly and time-consuming. And even if you win, there's no guarantee you'll recover your legal fees. So you really have to weigh the potential benefits against the risks and costs.
That makes sense. It's not a decision to be taken lightly. But I'm curious, what if the person who defamed you realizes they messed up? And wants to make things right?
Do they have any options besides just waiting to be sued?
They do. In California, there's a legal mechanism called a retraction.
A retraction?
Yes. It's basically a way for the defendant to publicly acknowledge that their previous statement was false and correct the record.
So it's like a public apology and a correction all rolled into one.
Precisely. And retractions can actually help to mitigate damages in a defamation case.
Really? So if someone spreads a nasty rumor about me, but then issues a sincere and prominent retraction, that could reduce the amount they have to pay if I sue them.
That's the idea. California law recognizes that retractions can help to repair some of the damage to a person's reputation. But there are some rules around this. It can't just be a half-hearted apology buried on page 20 of their website.
I was just thinking that.
It has to be a real effort to set the record straight.
It does.
Exactly. For a retraction to be effective, it needs to be timely, prominent, and unambiguous. It needs to be published soon after the defamatory statement. It needs to reach the same audience.
And it needs to clearly state that the previous information was false.
So it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. But it's a way to show good faith and potentially reduce the legal fallout.
Exactly.
This is all incredibly helpful. I feel like I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. We got these different types of damages. And then we've got these nuances like libel versus slander. Slander per se, nominal damages and retractions.
It's
like a whole legal ecosystem.
That's a great way to think about it. These concepts are all interconnected.
And
they all play a role in how California law seeks to balance the interests of free speech with the need to protect individuals from reputational harm.
But wait, there's more to this legal ecosystem, right?
There is?
I have a feeling we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
There's one more piece of this puzzle that we need to talk about.
Okay.
It's a bit of a strange term.
Right.
But it plays a huge role in how these defamation cases actually play out in California.
Have you ever heard of anti-cell APP motions?
Oh, yes. Anti-cell APP motions.
Anti-cell APP.
They're kind of like a legal shield for free speech.
Okay.
The term SLAP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation.
Okay.
And unfortunately, these types of lawsuits do happen.
So it's like someone with deep pockets trying to use the legal system
right.
to silence their critics.
Exactly. Imagine a big corporation doesn't like what a journalist is writing about them.
Okay.
So they slap them with a defamation lawsuit, hoping to make it too expensive for the journalist to fight back.
Right.
Even if the lawsuit has no merit, the goal is to intimidate and drain their resources.
That sounds pretty insidious.
It can be.
So how do anti-cell APP motions come into play?
Well, California has a very strong anti-cell APP law.
Okay.
It allows the defendant in these types of cases to file a special motion early on, basically saying, hey, this lawsuit is bogus, and it's only being filed to silence me.
Right.
And if the court agrees, the lawsuit can be dismissed very quickly. And the plaintiff might even have to pay the defendant's legal fees.
So it's a way for the courts to filter out these abusive lawsuits.
Exactly.
And protect people's right to speak out on important issues without fear of being bullied into silence.
Precisely. Anti-SLAPP motions are a crucial safeguard for free speech in California.
Okay.
They recognize that sometimes defamation lawsuits are used as a weapon to stifle legitimate criticism and debate.
This all makes so much sense now.
Good.
We've got these different types of damages, and then we've got these safeguards like anti-SLAPP motions to protect free speech.
Yeah.
It's really about finding that balance, isn't it?
It is.
Protecting reputations, but also ensuring that people can speak their minds without fear of being unfairly targeted.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's a complex area of law.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's about ensuring fairness and justice for everyone involved.
Well, I have to say this deep dive has been incredibly enlightening.
It's been a pleasure.
I feel like I've learned so much about defamation law in California.
Good.
And I'm sure our listeners have too.
I hope so. It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you.
Yeah.
And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
There's always more to learn, and the law is constantly evolving.
Exactly. So, to our listeners, if you're ever facing a situation involving defamation, it's always best to consult with an attorney.
Absolutely.
To get specific legal advice tailored to your situation.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah.
But even if you never find yourself in a courtroom, understanding these concepts can help you navigate the world with more awareness and confidence.
And hopefully it encourages everyone to think a little more carefully about the words they use.
Right.
And the potential impact they can have on others.
Well said, because in the end, words have power, and it's up to all of us to use them responsibly.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the fascinating world of California defamation law.
It's been a pleasure as always.
Until next time, deep divers, stay curious, stay informed, and remember, knowledge is power.